Yo, what's up? After completing the detailed BR3 guide for Germany, it's time to address the other nations in a quicker way, because we don't have to repeat all the basics again. That means if this is the first video of the series you're watching, I recommend to watch the German guide first, at least the introduction, because that's where the general BR3 environment and all the general tricks and important knowledge are explained. Starting with the Americans, the most important thing to know about them is that BR3 is exactly where the American army has its biggest power spike compared to its enemies. Since the Americans are playing against Germans and Japanese, regarding the Japanese, Americans are always stronger, since the Japanese just have our all very weak equipment. But relative to the Germans, the Americans suffer on low BR because Germans have overall better tanks, better guns and so on. And on high BR, nothing beats the Germans. But on mid BR, the Americans get a rare combination of Germany being only medium strong and the Americans getting some of the best weapons in the whole game. So, looking at the rifles, we get the world famous M1 Garand, and in Enlisted it's as good as it was in real life. In real life this gave the Americans on the Western Front significant advantages, especially on low and mid-range engagements. The fact that you have 8 semi-auto bullets, whereas most Germans still were running around with Kar98Ks, meant a lot. And in Enlisted, many of your enemies will still run around with bolt-action rifles, and even the ones using semi-auto rifles against you, for the Japanese they only have very weak ones, and for the Germans they also have only the Gewehr 41, which is just significantly worse than the Garand. So the Garand gives you a really good advantage, also very nice and comfy to play, since it gives you the biggest immersion out of all weapons in the series, possibly. Then, regarding the sniper and grenade launchers, more good news. First of all, the Lee Enfield No. 4 is the best bolt-action sniper rifle in the game, on a wide margin, on an extremely wide margin, because this weapon, I praise it every single video I can, has all the peak stats. It has 10 bullets for a bolt-action rifle, extremely good. It has very high speed for a bolt-action rifle. It has the highest damage you can find in the game. And it has insane precision. Also a very strong magnification scope. So this weapon is just the peak of bolt-action sniping you can get. If you like to snipe long range, this is the best weapon by far. By absolutely far. And of course dual wielded, because there's nothing better than having two 10-bullet fast-firing bolt-action rifles in your arsenal on your one soldier. You can also mix it up theoretically if you want with a sniper Garand. Yep, on BR3 this can actually be better. Then you just use the Lee Enfield as your primary weapon for super long range engagements, and your sniper Garand for medium and short range engagements. This is basically the optimal case, though it might take quite a lot of grinding to unlock both. But once upgraded to the maximum, these weapons are absolutely strong and really fun to play. Once again, you just get the best out of all worlds. You get the best bolt-action rifle you can have, or the best basis of a bolt-action rifle, and you get the best semi-auto rifle. And all of this combined with the advantage of scopes. So, absolutely insane. The only little downgrade the Americans get in BR3 is regarding the grenade launchers, because here you get no access to anti-tank grenade launchers. Reason for that is, grenade launchers usually increase the tier of your weapon to BR3, because BR3 is the minimum for grenade launchers. But if the weapon is already in BR3, it gets increased to BR4. And since the Garand is already in BR3, this Garand grenade launcher is in BR4. Now some people complain about it, but it would be completely unfair if the Garand grenade launcher would be also BR3, since it's just a straight up upgrade towards the normal Garand, and the Garand is already the best semi-auto rifle in BR3. So this is absolutely BR4 power level. This weapon is way too strong for BR3. This means you cannot have anti-tank grenade launchers as an American in BR3, which is a significant downgrade, since your grenade launchers are only useful against infantry, by that logic, and against APCs at least, but still, not being able to randomly snipe tanks is a downside. Though, on the flip side, you get access as the only nation to 3 different grenade launchers. Yes, like other nations only get one max, you get 3 different ones, and here's what you can do. you can get either the normal one, or you can get the semi-auto M1 carbine one, which is my preferred version, or you get the bolt action one from Tunisia with 10 bullets. Like, this by itself would already be the best normal grenade launcher in the game, because it's the only one with 10 bullets in a bolt action. Alternatively, the one with 15 bullets is a semi-auto. And sadly you can't combine them dual wielding, since then you get the reload speed penalty. So obviously you want to either play 2 of these or 2 of these. And congratulations, you, even despite not having access to the anti-tank grenade launchers, you still get access to the almost best and definitely most flexible, according to what you like the most, grenade launcher combos. So this is a big plus. Now comes the first complicated part. What about the SMGs? Because now all of a sudden we actually have to choose, because there are many viable weapons. First of all, what about the shotguns? Well, they're just straight up worse in the Garand or the SMGs, so they're sadly in a bad state. Mechanically they are very badly implemented. Their damage drop-off is extremely high, higher than in real life. And it's not like you get a significant advantage on short range. Like, if they would be able to deal damage to multiple enemies at once, or shoot through enemies reliably and kill enemies behind the first enemy, okay. If they had cool animations when you hit enemies, okay, but right now they're just basically unusable. Then you get the Lanchester from BR2, and this is exactly one of the good news. If you just want to save your grind, if you don't want to spend more silver and don't want to grind too much, you can just stay with the Lanchesters. They're absolutely perfectly viable. And the Thompsons aren't even that much better than the Lanchester. You can see it by the fact that I dual wield both weapons. Because the dual wielding is better than just playing either one of them. What about the Thompsons in themselves? Well, you get access to 2 Thompsons. The difference between them is one has moderate fire rate, though good fire rate, and okay recoil. The other one has a higher fire rate and worse recoil, and forces you to grind more. Now, out of these 2 weapons, I recommend clearly the first. The second one is basically a downgrade. The problem with the Thompsons is, due to their bad sights, it's already hard to aim. And you really need to hit your shots, you really need to land your shots. But it's hard with the Thompsons. And the last thing you need in that situation is more horizontal recoil, combined with higher speed, so the recoil manifests itself more intensely. So yeah, the first Thompson by far the clear winner. How do you want to play them? Well, if you want to play, well, if you were, as I said, if you don't want to grind, just play the Lanchester. If you absolutely want to play Thompsons, play this first one. And if you want to power game and see what's the strongest way to play BR3 Americans, dual wield them. Why? Very simple. Thompson is optimal on short range. There's insane damage. There's no way you survive, not even with yellow perks, high yellow perks and vitality. 2 hits from a Thompson on close range. The Lanchester, though, is much better on longer ranges. So if you dual wield them, you get the advantage of dual wielding, meaning if you run out of bullets, you just quickly switch to the next weapon. You don't have to reload, which is, you always have enough time to switch weapons, but you rarely have enough time during a battle to reload. And you get the maximum amount of reserve ammunition. Because if you dual wield the same weapon twice, you only get the reserve once, not for both weapons. But if you dual wield 2 different weapons, you get, or 2 different ammunition types in some rare cases, you get the complete full amount of reserve ammunition, which very often will even give you more bullets than having a large ammo pouch. So ammo pouches absolutely unplayable in that regard, because they're basically inferior to dual wielding in any way. Yeah. So this is the strongest way to play them. And the good news is, if you want to grind further into BR4, once Enlisted has enough players to actually have a BR4 environment, you can ignore the other Thompsons because they're not really much better. The first really good Thompson you get after the very first one is the world famous Thompson with the drum mag. Which is really fun to play because it has not that good recoil overall, but still okay recoil, a very good fire rate, and just 50 bullets, which is insane. Keep in mind, Thompsons have above average short range damage, even mid-range damage for SMGs, which is the specialty basically in the game. though in general, due to their bad sights, they are much harder to aim with. Now, what about the machine guns? Here it becomes, first of all, once again, good news. After having to suffer through 3 absolutely horrible machine guns, you get also machine guns no one wants to play. Also British machine guns, which is almost synonymous with the previous statement. You get access to 3 Brownings. Yes, you can choose from any Browning you want. Only question is, which one? Now here's the deal. The Brownings, if you look, get incrementally better by little margins. They have the same fire rate, basically everything stays the same, except for the recoil. The first one 41-15, 38-15, 34-15. They're basically the same weapon, except that this one has the best recoil. Also regarding fire modes, if you want, this one gets slow auto fire, which if you're not that good at recoil control is good, but if you're good at recoil control, you just always spray it. Now this is the best machine gun in BR3. Significantly best. There's even no contender, because the best analogy for that is the Browning feels and plays like a worse FG42, or it feels very similar to the German first FG42 that you get in BR5. Basically, very close, very similar damage, very similar fire rate, and even very similar sights, and also similar recoil. The difference is the Browning you can only use on machine gunners, obviously, but you use it on BR3. And this is exactly what, this is one of the main reasons the Americans have a big power jump in BR3 compared to other nations. There's simply nothing the enemies can do. What do the Germans get? They get a MG34 with 50 bullets and a good fire rate but horrible recoil. Guess what? The Browning will always defeat the MG34s in direct duels. I'm going to use a direct duel argument, which usually doesn't make sense, but everyone's using it, so I'm just going to use this first and then the normal argument. There's no other machine gun on BR3, not even the Soviet ones, that is even remotely as good as this one. One of the main advantages of the Brownings is that they don't even give you a running and aiming speed penalty as other machine guns. Meaning, their handling is almost the same as semi-auto rifles. As SMGs. Despite them still having all the advantages of a full-powered machine gun. This is also the only weapon in the game that I dual wield twice, because it's just so good. You can't even use another weapon to dual wield it with. It's just ridiculously good. It's absolutely insane. I recommend, if you haven't tried it out yet, just use it, and it makes sense to grind them to the last one. Now if you want to save grinding time and silver, yeah, you can just play the first one, but this is really the point in the American Tech 3 where you really want to get to unlock the last one, because it's just insanely strong. It's even better than the Johnson, because the Johnson has bad sights and bad recoil. The Brownings have significantly better recoil overall. Yeah, I could talk for more hours about how good the Brownings are, though just look at the footage and try them out yourself and you will love them. Then, what about the heavy stuff? Well, you of course want to play your Studbaker APC, and also you can play the one of the 2 mid-BR Flamethrowers, though as usual mid-BR Flamethrowers not really good because of the very limited range, and most engagements you have as Americans aren't really short range, so it's not really that good. I'd much rather play a Browning or Thompson than this. But another good thing you actually get is the M9 Bazooka. Why is it so good? Very simple. It has actually enough penetration, 102 millimeters, to penetrate basically all tanks on BR3. If you're up against higher BR tanks, from the front it will be hard to penetrate, though if you aim at the lower parts of the hull or the tracks you still get some effect. Or if you aim straight at the cannon, you might destroy it. But what you want to do is you want to go from the side and penetrate in a straight 90 degrees angle. This will kill even King Tigers. So yeah, M9 Bazooka really good. Significantly better than the normal Bazooka, because the normal Bazooka has basically no penetration. It has 60 millimeter penetration, which is barely enough for low BR. And keep in mind, on longer distances, Bazooka flies very straight, you can aim very well with it, but the penetration is just slow. So yeah, but still Bazooka really welcome, very much welcome. And that's the last of the hand weapons. Now well, of course there's still the Mortar, but low caliber mortars are just not good. Mortars are only viable if they can also kill gray zone tanks. They're not viable if your only attempt is to kill infantry, because this is rarely working. But you can very reliably snipe gray zone tanks with them, but only if it's a high caliber mortar, not if it's a low caliber mortar. What you can do if you have a big army is you can throw in one Boys BR, Boys anti-tank rifle, because these things are actually good at sniping long range, very far away anti-tank guns and anti-air guns. Actually the easiest way to kill them in the whole game. Of course you can also use a tank, but if you spawn as infantry, having access to one of these is always good to have and very much underrated. Now let's go to the tanks. In the tank department we have some interesting choices to do, because it's either between the 3 Sherman versions or the howitzer tank. And this is something many players, especially new players, underestimate. Also older sweatlords in the game underestimate it heavily, because first the howitzer tank, since it's quite easy. This howitzer tank comes with a short 105mm cannon and only HE shells. This means you will have trouble penetrating most BR3 tanks unless you shoot perfectly at weak spots. But since you have quite a good fire rate and insanely heavy high explosive loads in your shells, you're gonna completely annihilate all the infantry you see on the map. And yes, on the whole map, because you can just spray across the whole map. Your blast radiuses are so big that everything dies. This tank is literally a blast to play, absolutely fun. And also forces you to be safe, because if the enemy tanks see you, your armor may look very heavy, but it's not that strong against German tanks. And you also can't be that effective when shooting back at the German tank. So you rather stay safe, but as long as you survive, this tank will dominate the game. There's no way for the enemies to win as long as this tank is on the battlefield and kills dozens of infanterists per minute. Yeah. So, and especially against Japanese. Well, against Japanese you easily defeat everyone, but against Germans there might actually be some dangerous matchup. Also keep in mind you have a heavy machine gun on top, which you can use to shoot down planes or just shoot down infantry, so especially nice. Though it increases your profile, so you're easier to spot if you're hiding somewhere. Contrasting to that, we have the 3 Sherman clones. Sherman 2 or the American versions. Now it doesn't really matter which ones you play. Progressively they get a bit better regarding the equipment and the ammunition they get, but the Sherman starts out with the overall best armor. Also the American M4A1. It is actually better than the next one, because this one only has 19mm on top and these versions have 25. For those thinking, oh, that doesn't really matter, it does matter, because 25mm can actually save you reliably from 20mm autocannons from planes, but 19mm won't. So if you see heavy plane activity and especially competent pilots who strafe the ground, you rather have this reliable Sherman than the M4A2. So what's the choice between these tanks and how do you grind it optimally? I wouldn't waste any time grinding the M4A2 in the folder. I just unlock the Sherman 2 right after the Crusader and then use it and then go straight in the line as fast as possible to the howitzer tank. And then, if I have enough tank slots, I will play both, because A, they are really fun, and B, depending on the situation, on the battlefield, you either whip out this one or the other one, and you don't waste any time grinding the in-between tanks, because they're not that much of a significant upgrade. Also, I wouldn't waste any silver upgrading the tanks themselves, since it costs a lot, and you don't get much in return. Yeah, so, also, if you have the howitzer tank, it actually stays really good for a long time, because in a lineup, if you start playing BR4 and BR5, the howitzer tank still stays relevant. whereas all the other tanks instantly fall behind. Since, well, there's no reason to play Sherman or Sherman versions if you can have a jumbo. But the howitzer tank in dedicated anti-infantry situations is still just the king. And also overall the most dangerous tank in BR3, because no other tank can create as much damage as the howitzer tank, while also being quite easy to use and also quite mobile, and therefore you will see it constantly. Also, secret tip, whenever you can, whenever the objective allows it, start with the howitzer tank. Because you can usually easily get 20 to 30 kills at the beginning of the game and completely either cleans the objective from any defenders or blow up all the attackers before they actually manage to get a good attack together. Either way, the howitzer tank is just insanely good. Then, regarding the planes, this is getting complicated because you have access to, well, infinite amounts of planes. Question is, which ones do we use? Now, we would like to use the A20G, but we can't because it's BR4. Damn, that's bad, alright. Which attacker plane are we gonna use first? Now, we obviously can't use the P47. Do we use the AP1? Well, it has really good stuff, but it is one of the slowest plane in the game with one of the worst climb rates and a bad turn rate. So the AP1 also starts on the carrier if you play Pacific maps. So in general, if you play Americans, you want to avoid planes as if you can that start on carriers. You always want to start in the air, and the AP1 is just, yeah, like if you want to have a strong boom, yep, it's okay, but overall it's not just that good. Also, we have better alternatives. Then the Bullfighter would be good, though sadly it also is BR4. Yeah, okay, what else do we have? Well, the next best options are the Dauntless, which is just a worse, it's just a worse AP1, because the flying characteristics are even worse. And it's, yeah, I'd rather just play the AP1 than the Dauntless. Also, Dauntless also starts on the carrier. But then, oh, look at this, we get the P38G. Now, what's so good about this boy? Very simple. It's simply said the best American attacker plane. At least for as long as these P38Gs don't get converted to attacker planes, because right now they are fighter planes for very illogical reasons. And that's why we have to suffer using the BR2 P38Gs, which are classified as attackers. So yeah, now why are they so good? Very simple. Very good flying speed. 700 basically kilometers per hour is insanely fast. This is BR5 speed. This isn't BR3 speed, it's BR5 speed that you get on BR3. Then very good climb rate, an okay turn rate. Well, you can't get everything. Also, such fast planes usually don't get better turn rates, so okay. Then it has a 20mm cannon, so you can strafe all the German tanks from the top. There's no German tank in BR3 or lower that survives strafing from the 20mm cannon 90 degrees down. And you get 4 heavy machine guns with 500 bullets each, meaning this plane never runs out of bullets. Meaning you can shoot and strafe everything on the air, in the air and on the ground. And you get 6 M8 rockets. These rockets aren't that strong, but if you get a straight hit into an enemy tank, all German BR3 tanks and lower die instantly. So this plane, if you have actual good plane skills, if you have good pilot skills, is one of the best planes overall in BR3, despite being only BR2. Because it shreds everything on the air and one-shots every tank on the ground. Absolutely good. I'm gonna, once I have time in the next coming weeks, gonna do a guide about this plane, because it's knowing how to aim with these rockets is just turns you into an absolute deadly monster in the air. And it's very fun to use because, as I said, if you don't run out of ammo during your strafings, it's actually fun to fly around. So yeah, extremely good plane, extremely reliable. And take a guess how good this thing is on low BR. Exactly, it's absolutely monstrous. So amazing. Now, what about the fighters? And there isn't even any competition. It's clearly the P-51D for Best Fighter American Spear 3, and still Best Fighter American Spear 5, and even one of the best fighter planes overall in the game, looking at all BRs. Reason for that is, it has only strengths, not a single weakness, not a single downside, and it's just way too strong on BR3. Now, looking at it, it comes with 2 heavy bombs, meaning not only do you kill everything easily on BR3, if you get up tiered, you easily take out King Tiger Aegis. Easily. And if you don't see a King Tiger, well, guess what? All the infantry on the ground will die. That's absolutely insane. And you don't get only 1, you get 2 heavy bombs. This is just, it can't be overstated how good it is. Then you get infinite ammunition for your 3 times 2 heavy machine guns. This placement on the wings was built historically to make it easy for pilots to shoot down enemy planes. Because if the enemy plane flies from left to right, he's gonna fly in a straight line. You just align your wings to be perfectly congruent on the line of flight of the enemy plane. And then the chance that a bunch of either this side or the other side of the heavy machine gun triplets is gonna hit is very high. And if you align it perfectly, he's gonna even fly straight through both of your triplets and gonna get 6 heavy machine gun shots, and then no matter what plane you're against, plane is shredded. So this is an absolute monster in plane duels. And you have so much ammunition, you can, once you shot down both enemy planes in the air, you can still strafe the ground or shoot down 5 bombers. So this is insanely good. And it comes with a perfect speed of 705 kilometers per hour, meaning there's no plane that can reliably fly away from you. And you have a great climb rate of 22, and you still, relative to these numbers, have an okay turn rate of 1770. So overall, just insanely superb plane. Regarding alternatives, well, there's not that much. The only real alternative that's worth it is just to play a second P-38. That's that simple, because here's the thing, if you're really good with this P-38 and you especially like it, you can just play the same plane with a bit better stats as a fighter version. That's literally it. So the American Tech Tree literally gives you the version, the option to play basically exactly the same plane for both attacker and fighter. Now this is the most comfy way to play it, though keep in mind it takes forever to grind. It takes forever to grind. So yeah, I'd just rather grind to the P-51 and just play that one, and then everything's fine. Yeah? For the end, we quickly go over the strongest way to build your American army and also evaluate all the different squad types. First of all, you always want to have a machine gunner squad in your American army. There's absolutely no way you want to lose out on the Brownings. They're absolutely strong. Also, machine gunner squads in general are extremely good because you get the engineer radio man combo. Perfect way to start a game. And also you get the biggest firepower you can get for Americans. Then you also want an APC, because no matter which theater you're in, the APCs will always be highly impactful. If it's Tunisia, you have 250 meter distance from some objectives. If it's Battle of the Bulge, it's the same. If it's city maps, you might want to flank, and flanking takes forever unless you're an APC. Also, bonus point in city maps, APCs are quite safe from bombings and stuff like that. And even in the Pacific, they're good. So yeah, APC highly recommended. If you're a free-to-play account, for the 3rd infantry squad, you can play whatever you want. If you want to have it easy and comfy, just play assaulters. If you want to have the max power level, play riflemen. Here I recommend a progression from among your riflemen. First have a rifleman with a bolt action, grenade launcher, so you can shoot the enemies far away, since this soldier will be the first one to engage enemies. And then after a while just play semi-autos, because they are obviously only good at short range, but it usually only takes 1 or 2 soldiers until your whole squad reaches short range, and then your M1 carbines will be optimal. Or you could also just play 9-man Garand squad. If you like Garand so much, you can literally just play 9-man Garand squad and just let your bots do the work, because bots are quite good with Garands. It is also quite interesting to play. Alternatively, there are many viable squads, and we're gonna take a look at that now. So first of all, anti-tank gunners, they are okay, though not that useful because you won't have any trouble with enemy tanks. You have really good tanks yourself, Sherman very reliable with his cannon, and your planes are obviously one-shotting all the tanks. So anti-tank gunners are quite a waste for Americans. Then Vikings we're gonna do later, assaulters already said, really good. Engineers, ironically enough, quite a waste because you don't have that much need for them. Since if your vehicles are so overpowered, especially your planes, you don't need the flexibility of engineers to deal with enemy threats because you already have everything you need. If you're having a machine gunner squad, you already can build a heavy machine gun nest, which is obviously better than a machine gun nest, than a normal machine gun nest, and in many cases also better than the anti-tank gun, because against weak targets, against soft targets, and even against low-flying planes, the machine gun nest is really good. So engineers not that much needed simply. One of the few nations where I wouldn't really play engineers on BR3. Then flame troopers, sadly also not that good. They can be good in terms of they can have two riflemen with grenade launchers. This is good, and if you want, you can perk them out. You can build them in a way that you have two assaulters, and then you basically have a very flexible, very cool playing flamethrower squad. That's a mix of assaulters and riflemen and flamethrowers. Yeah, that's possible. Also, the only way I would play it on BR3. But not that much recommended since the machine gunners and assaulters are just stronger. Then medics, as usual, just unplayable on higher BRs. Mortars also too weak. The bikes also ridiculously bad. Paratroopers, if you have access to low BR paratroopers, can be really good because many maps are just begging for paratroopers to be abused. Though overall, like the low BR paratroopers don't have good weapons. So I would always play the high BR paratroopers. Actually, the only nation where I make sure I play them both, because their weapons are just insanely good, as I showed in my video for the 56th Regiment, but the low BR paratroopers aren't that good actually. Radio man squads also quite the waste. Like, you could argue with the event squads that have universal engineers, but if engineer squads in general aren't that good, then this isn't that much of an upgrade. So yeah. Also, the maps are always so big or so close that artillery isn't that effective. Then riflemen, as we said, really good. Keep in mind, by the way, since you have a mixed army of Americans and British, if you want to have this very nice camo, only play American squads. Because, for example, if you play this cool looking icon for the British infantry, you won't be able to use the American camouflage. You will have to play some ugly ass Brit-bonk uniforms, and yep, that will break your nice looking uniformity. So riflemen, very much viable. Snipers, ironically enough, one of the few nations where snipers can be really good, where a sniper squad can be really good. Why? Very simple. You just play three of these, and I would mix one with a sniper Garand as a secondary, and then you just sit around, snipe with your sniper soldier, and you call an artillery strike from time to time. And your other two snipers, since this weapon has insane precision on long range, your other two snipers will also get kills. And then you just have a very nice and comfy way to play the game. And since this weapon is so good, you're actually going to get enough kills to positively impact your team's performance. So yeah, ironically enough, Americans, the sniper specialists. Though, historically speaking, they were also the overall best sniper nation, because Americans were one of the few nations who had, even before the start of World War II, a dedicated sniper or marksman program. And the average sniping skills of American units were higher than that of most other nations. Now, other nations had some other advantages. For example, the Japanese had their highly trained snipers and their scoped machine guns, but even they were overall outperformed on average on a per soldier basis, if you look at the stats, by American snipers. So yeah, nice historical take and touch if you also play the American snipers. And APCs, of course, very good. Now regarding the vehicles, if you only have one squad, I recommend to play just the Sherman, so you have the overall maximum flexibility. But it's highly recommended for Americans to have as many slots as possible in addition, because then you can actually play all the vehicles. You can play the 2 good planes, and you can play possibly 2 tanks, a Sherman and a howitzer tank, so you're always perfectly on par with whatever the enemies are bringing. Alright, that's it. That's the American guide. Overall, extremely fun to play nation. BR3 Americans might be my favorite incarnation of the Americans, since the only thing you really get on high BR is basically the P-47, and the rest isn't that special. But yeah, BR3 for Americans just gives you all of the cool stuff, especially in the vehicle department. Let me know what you think. And until next time, where we look at the Soviets.